Creepypasta readings, number 4, 3 Eevee stories. Story 1, Project Eeveelution. I'm not proud of this. I nearly ended the life of an innocent Pokemon. I hope one day some pure-hearted trainer will catch this Pokemon and help it reach its full potential we wanted it to have. For now, we must tell you this story. Day 1. Our studies have finally yielded fruit. I have found that in Surge City Bay, there are evolutionary stones that never lose their power. A diving team has been sent to the underground sanctuary, where the stones are said to be held in a shrine. Day 2. The stones have been retrieved. We now have 8 stones of virtually limitless power. We are going to retrieve other items from other regions. We now are developing a search team to search the waters around Citadark Isle, where there was believed to be another shrine. We have also sent out groups to find special rocks from Sinnoh and Unova. Day 2. Z's story. I don't like getting up. I want to stay asleep, but Dad said he wanted to talk to me today. I'll just see if he forgets. No chance of that. Dad wakes me up. We need to talk about Eeveelution, he says. Great. I don't want to talk about growing up yet. I get up anyway. Dad says I'm a normal Eevee. He's right. I'm a different color than other Eevees. Dad says that's called being a shiny Pokemon. Mom, a Glaceon, and Dad, an Umbreon, and I get into our living room, a nice furnished room inside our human-made house. I knew this talk would come soon. I didn't want it either, but they said I needed it. I'm going to be some lucky trainer's Pokemon someday. Dad explains that Umbreon is the Dark-type evolution with high defensive stats. They have the powers of Moonlight, a poisonous spray, and other status moves. He says that Eevee becomes Umbreon at night if they have a strong relation to their trainer or with a Moon Shard. Mom says that Glaceon is the Ice-type evolution. The species has high defense and special attack. Their powers include making their fur stand up like needles and flash freezing moisture in the air. She says that they evolve when near special ice-covered rocks. After that, they handed me a book written in that messy human language. It contained entries of all 7 evolutions. I'll start with the first, Jolteon. The lightning Pokemon, the electric evolution. They evolve through the use of a Thunderstone. They have high speed and special attack. Their arsenal of techniques includes Thunder, Pin Missile, and many others. They gain power by breathing in negative ions. They tend to make their fur stand on ends to be as sharp as needles. Hey, just like Mom. Vaporeon, the Bubble Jet Pokemon. They evolve via use of a Water Stone and have high hit points and high special attack. Their move pool includes Hydro Pump, Ice Beam, Acid Armor, and more. They can disappear into water, making them near invisible underwater. They are commonly mistaken for mermaids. I have the strangest sensation to check my water before I drink it next time. Flareon, the Flame Pokemon, and they evolve through exposure to a Firestone. They have very strong attack and special defense. They have an internal flame sac that can make their body as hot as 1650 degrees Fahrenheit and use moves such as Flamethrower and Fire Fang. Now that's on fire. While I went through all the evolutions and they all have their strong points, evolution will be a hard choice. I decided to just rest. But then, the next day... Day 3. I got out of the car. Professor Fur looked at me worryingly. Are you sure that shiny Eevee will be okay? He asked. Of course, I replied. We are not Team Rocket. We want to perform these experiments to better our understanding of evolution. We make sure all our experiments are humane for Pokemon. Professor Fur looked worried, so we agreed that he could watch all the experiments. We found the shiny Eevee playing with its friends. Professor Fur got it into a Pokeball. After driving to the lab and making sure it felt safe, we knocked it out using a painless serum. The team had not gotten all the stones yet, but we had extracted shards of the stones we still had. We have found out that Eevee and every evolution of Eevee had their spine run down through their body into their tail. We implemented the shards of the Water, Fire, and Thunderstone into the small Pokemon's spinal column base. Day 4, Z's story. I can't remember much, but I think that the scientists are okay. I'm back with my family and I'm just laying around. The scientists are returning tomorrow according to my parents. When they came back, they brought me back to the lab. Well, Eevee, you deserve to know why you are here, he said. We are experimenting with devolution, or the process of devolving Pokemon. Devolution? That's unheard of. I wonder what will happen. Now, Eevee, you are perfect for the experiment. We have already implemented parts of evolutionary stones into your spine. Now we wish to alter your DNA to allow you to devolve at will, he said. We are performing this to further our understanding of evolution. Do you wish to continue? I thought about it. I finally nodded my head. I thought that this could help both Pokemon and people. The scientist smiled. He picked me up and put me to sleep. Day 4. The fourth day was mostly monitoring Eevee's DNA changes. Everything went smoothly. We gave Eevee the ability to devolve at will and the ability to remember moves its evolved forms know. When it evolved into Vaporeon, it would know Hydro Pump, Acid Armor, and other moves. We were incomplete because we needed to study the Eevee gene more. Afterwards, we planned to add the other 4 evolutions and give it the power to go from one evolution to the other. Day 5. We got Eevee again. The shiny Eevee was looking much like a teenager who was dragged out of bed on a Monday morning. We started the testing for battle today. Okay, Eevee, we want you to focus on becoming a Flareon. If the genetics worked, you should be able to transform with no trouble at all. I saw Eevee close its eyes. He started to glow and turn into a Flareon. I was overjoyed that nothing went wrong. This was a success beyond anything. Day 5, Z's story. I focused on becoming Flareon. I started to glow as my body temperature shot up and I felt a warm blanket of fire around me. Then came the immediate change in major thoughts. I felt the most irresistible surge of cockiness. I felt like I could crush any foe in my path and I immediately wanted to fight someone. The scientist pointed out a target. He said that I could test out new attacks on it. I tried Giga Impact, Flamethrower, and Fire Fang. Now focus on becoming an Eevee again. I did so. The new body was nice and all, but I did like being an Eevee. I focused and became Eevee again. I was back as an Eevee. I was then told to become Vaporeon. As Vaporeon, I was ultra calm and went back to normal thoughts, yet much calmer. I wanted to rest for a while. I used Hydro Pump and Acid Armor, and even jumped into a pool. I was really liking being in water. Jolteon was a lot like Flareon, but I was instead very hyper. I blasted the target with Pin Missile and Thunderbolt. I even tested my speed. I was very fast. I devolved to Eevee. You surpassed expectations. Here, have a Pokeblock. He threw me a Pokeblock and I happily ate it. Now go get rest. We will get some more testing done later. Days 6 through 20. These days were filled with more testing. We have greatly decoded the Eevee gene. The DNA changes due to radiation and each evolution still stays similar regardless of how it changes. So every evolution is genetically similar to Eevee. The Sun Shard, Moon Shard, Icy Rock, and Mossy Rock have arrived, and we have implemented them into Eevee's spine. Tests have still exceeded results. Eevee still cooperates with us. We are thankful as we don't think a normal Eevee would be able to get good results this good, and the chances of a Pokemon being born shiny is 1 in 8,192. We even have new data on shiny Pokemon, and that shininess is linked to stat totals but not in every shiny Pokemon. We even got Eevee to change into different evolutions without going back to Eevee. He even learned to transform in the middle of battle. Days 6 through 20, Z story. These were very eventful days indeed. I evolved into the Calm and Adapt Espeon and used my massive psychic powers and solar abilities to get around quite nicely. I could easily get through a totally dark maze as Umbreon, and my defenses were rock hard. As Leafeon, I enjoyed the fact that breathing was far simpler and that my ears were super sharp. Glaceon was really useful when it was a hot day. Day 21, Z story. This day started the same. I got up, went to the lab, scientists greeted me. But then strange things happened starting that day. I was 1 second a Flareon, then I was Vaporeon. I didn't remember changing. Then another time I was Glaceon, then Espeon. I kept cycling through evolutions subconsciously, so I decided to become Eevee. What are you doing? Evolve into Flareon! Something said in a harsh and angry voice. I looked around. No one was there. Even if someone was there, it wasn't anyone I met at the lab, and I knew the staff by name, face, voice, and scent. I then ran into the hall. I wanted to feel safer. But whatever was tormenting me was intending something else. Don't listen to him. Evolve into Vaporeon and stay that way, said a much calmer voice. No, evolve into Jolteon, an aggressive and energetic voice said. Evolve into Espeon and we will rule with our psychic powers. A calm yet intellectual voice said. I'll tell you once, become Umbreon, a dominating voice said. Leafeon should be your choice, young Eevee, a calm voice not unlike wind going through leaves said. Glaceon, now. I realized with horror that these voices were the voices of evolutions. I was no longer in my own body, I realized. I was now at the mercy of seven consciousnesses raging for control. I started going through evolutions uncontrollably as the 7 voices in my head raged for dominance. Out of my head! Out of my head! Out of my head! I screamed in Pokemon. I raged in pain as I felt 7 blades had snuffed out my very being. The last I saw was the head scientist grabbing a needle. Day 21. I heard the screaming and all the machines picked up on the energy flux. The entire team came to see it. Poor Eevee was now uncontrollably going between evolutions. I grabbed a syringe filled with high-strength knockout serum. I fought against the energy waves and got the syringe close to Eevee. The rapid evolution was turning the air around the poor Pokemon into plasma and the light was blinding me. I injected the serum into Eevee, burning my hand in the process. Eevee fell down unconscious. We immediately went to work to find out what was happening. We found out that Eevee had developed severe multiple personality disorder due to the varying behaviors of the evolutions. We did one last thing to Eevee. We erased all memories it had of the ordeal over the past 3 weeks and made it so it would forget all memories it had if it became an again evolution and devolved. We shut down the lab. We told Professor Fur that it was impossible to remove the shards from Eevee's spine. We said that if Eevee ever regained its memory, it would either go insane, or maybe, just maybe, if a pure-hearted trainer owned it and Eevee's mind overcame the 7 other minds, it might be able to use its power to the extent we wanted it to. I've monitored Eevee from time to time through Professor Fur. The little Pokemon has recovered. I regret becoming a scientist to an extent. Why is it a scientist's job to find out what can't be explained? But some things, like what life truly is, shouldn't be fully understood. Years later, I received word from Professor Fur that he gave Eevee to a trainer. He has faith. I have faith. I hope that I get to see Eevee again. I hope to see that he could truly become what he wanted him to be. The next entry took place later according to the text. I saw Eevee with the trainer yesterday. Eevee looked so happy. We talked for a while. He said he was from Topsoil Town. He said his name was... The trainer holding the journal dropped it as his loyal Eevee went over to read the name. Story 2. Prevention of Evolution. I'll never look at shiny Eevee in the same way again. Ever. It started only a few days ago. I was on the internet looking for action replay codes. I really wanted one for either a shiny Vulpix or a shiny Eevee. Then I found one for that shiny Eevee I wanted so much. The code was long, but I was willing to take the time to put it in. It took about 15 minutes to put the code in, but I was so excited to get the code into action. I started my Soul Silver game up with the code on. I clicked on continue and my previous save data came up. I was saved right in front of the Pokemon Center. I rushed into the place with my Typhlosion following behind me. I went to the PC and pressed A. Klaus booted up the PC. I clicked A on Bill's PC. Pokemon Storage System activated. I pressed the L and R buttons down and moved to box 5 where a shiny Eevee was supposed to come up. I moved the cursor over to the Eevee. It was named E. Capital E, lowercase e, capital E, and it was level 1. Its moves were Tackle, Growl, Sand Attack, and Swift. I took out my level 1 Giratina from my party and put it into the first box of the PC. Afterwards I put E in my party. I wanted to trade it onto my Heart Gold version since it was the one I always play. I got my other DS and popped Heart Gold into it. I turned it on and clicked continue. Once both of my players were in the Union Room, I started the trade. I traded a Cubone onto my Soul Silver in return for E. Once the Pokemon were traded onto the separate versions, I made both players leave the Union Room and saved one at a time. Once turning off the system Soul Silver was in, I went to play in Heart Gold. I wanted to clone E so I could get the rest of the evolutions. I wonder if I have a Thunderstone, I wondered to myself. As I opened my character's bag, the only evolution stone I had was a Water Stone. Vaporeon will do for now, I guess. I clicked A on the Water Stone and clicked on E. I watched as the Eevee evolved into a pink Vaporeon. Once the evolution process was done, I saved the game and turned it off as it was time for me to go to bed. Several days passed. I had gotten all the shiny evolutions except for Flareon, but that didn't matter to me. I'd get it later. I wanted to get E back onto my Soul Silver. I got my DS and popped in my Action Replay DSi on with Soul Silver. Once the code list loaded, I clicked on the shiny Eevee code and started up the game. I clicked continue as soon as the options come up. I was saved in the Pokemon Center this time. I ran over to the PC. Klaus booted up the PC. I clicked A on Bill's PC. Pokemon Store System activated. I was already in Box 5. I moved to Box 6 and held down the R and L buttons. I moved back to Box 5. Instead of an Eevee icon in the box, there was an egg icon. I moved my cursor onto it. It was a bad egg. I moved the egg to the side of the box and tried it again. Another bad egg. I moved this egg to the bottom and tried for a third time. This time E appeared in the box. I moved E back into my party. I wanted to train him. I disregarded the fact that I had 2 bad eggs in my PC box and logged off the PC. I ran out of the Pokemon Center to train E. I had the max experience code on, so this would be easy. After flying to Goldenrod City on my Ho-Oh, I ran out of the city, knowing that I had sneaked past him with some of the trainers. Once the trainer had spotted me, I sent out E. The opposing trainer sent out a level 10 Diglett. I returned E and sent out my trusty Typhlosion. After the foe's Diglett attacked, I selected Typhlosion's command. This wouldn't be hard at all for him since he was level 100. I selected Slash. Typhlosion used Slash. Foe Diglett fainted. I held down the R button so E would gain max experience points. E grew to level 2. E grew to level 3. This went on until E grew to level 37. Trainer is about to send out Zubat. Will Klaus change Pokemon? I selected yes and sent out E. Go, E! Trainer sent out Zubat. I selected the fight command, then chose Swift. E used Swift. Foe Zubat died. Their Zubat died? I questioned. I shook my head and ignored it. Although, through my confusion, I had forgotten to hold down the R button to get the max experience for my Eevee. Trainer is about to send out Diglett. Will Klaus switch Pokemon? I selected no this time. Trainer sent out Diglett. What will E do? I selected the fight option and then chose Swift again. E used Swift. Foe Diglett died. Again, the Pokemon had died. Even though this still confused me, I remembered to hold down the R button. E grew to level 38. E grew to level 39. E grew to level 40. This continued until E reached level 52. The opposing trainer didn't do anything after I beat him. Before the screen went back to the overworld, I got the evolution screen and E was on there. What? E is evolving. The animation started showing it was trying to evolve into Espeon. I clicked the B button since I already had a shiny Espeon. What? E stopped evolving. I noticed that E seemed to be angry. I ignored it and went on with training it. After about 5 minutes or so, E was trying to evolve into Espeon again. I pressed the B button again and E seemed even angrier at me. I was once again in the overworld. Before I could do anything, my trainer faced Eevee and an angry icon appeared over the shiny Eevee's head. E wants to evolve into Espeon. Yes or no options came up. Being that I didn't want it to evolve into Espeon, I clicked no. The angry icon appeared over E's head again and the small sprite jumped up and down as if it were throwing a tantrum. E wants to evolve. Another yes or no option came up. I clicked no again. E didn't do anything this time. I opened my party and noticed all my Pokemon were now bad eggs except for E. I clicked on E, then on summary. E's sprite had an evil looking smirk on its face and red eyes. I was starting to get tired of it. I went to a Pokemon Center and went to the PC. Klaus booted up the PC. I clicked A on Bill's PC. Pokemon Store System activated. I selected E and then clicked on Release. E won't leave without a fight. Suddenly I'm dragged into a random encounter. E wants to fight. Go, Typhlosion! There were 2 things I noticed here. The first thing was that I suddenly had my Typhlosion back. The second thing was that both E's and Typhlosion's sprites were bloody. E still had that grin on its face, and there was now blood on its eyes and ears. Typhlosion's sprite looked very much like it was in pain. Blood was dripping from its mouth and nose, flesh was exposed on its forehead, and the flame on its neck looked weak. What will Typhlosion do? I clicked the fight command, then chose Flamethrower. Typhlosion is scared. What? I whispered to myself. I didn't know Pokemon would get too scared to attack. E used Bite. The attack dealt much damage to my Typhlosion, but it wasn't down yet. There was more blood on it now than before. What will Typhlosion do? Fight. Flamethrower. Typhlosion is scared. I sighed. Again? I whispered. E used kill. Typhlosion has died. No! I yelled. I was glad my dad wasn't home when I had said that. Klaus is out of usable Pokemon. Klaus fell victim to E. I was once again confused. What did it mean by fell victim? I was back in the overworld, but I was in what seemed to be the Ilex Forest instead of the Pokemon Center. The forest was a dark red instead of its normal green color. Bones and rotting flesh were strewn across the area. The little pond was blood red too. At this point I was starting to feel sick to my stomach. Then I noticed something. E was right in front of my trainer. E's sprite jumped up and down. E wants you to suffer. I was getting too scared to go on with this. I moved my thumb towards the power button. Don't even try it. You're not getting away from me. A voice came through the speakers of my DS. I assumed the voice belonged to E. The screen turned to black and the only sound I could hear is what sounded like slashing. When the overworld came back, I saw my trainer lying on the ground in a pool of blood. He had an arm and leg missing and his eyes were pitch black. I presumed that his eyes were ripped out. E's sprite jumped up and down again, then a happy icon appeared over E's head. I tried turning the game off again, and to my surprise, it worked this time. I sat on my couch speechless and breathed hard for a moment before turning it back on. I clicked on Soul Silver once I was on the DSi menu. After the title screen came up, I was immediately taken to a wild encounter. My trainer sprite was missing his eyes and an arm. I swallowed hard. This greatly disturbed me. Then the opposing Pokemon appeared. E attacked. I noticed that E had shiny Espeon ears, tail, and a jewel. Blood was dripping from the ears, tail, and jewel. Its eyes were red and also had blood dripping from them. Its cry was like a demonic version of Espeon's cry. The only option was ball. I click on it. Klaus used one Pokeball. E goes into the ball. It shakes once and again. Then E breaks out. E doesn't want to go back. E used kill. Oh no, I said quietly to myself. There was a flash of crimson red before a text box came up. E has killed Klaus. The screen went back to the overworld. My trainer sprite wasn't there. E's sprite was now grinning widely. You should have let me evolve. E's voice echoed through the speakers of my DSi. The game turned itself off as E finished talking. I was too terrified to turn it back on. I threw my DS at the wall and surprisingly only my Soul Silver game pops out of it. I picked up the game cartridge and threw it in the trash can in the corner of my room. I sat there on my couch wondering what had just happened. I turned on my TV and the screen was black. I figured I had just left it on the channel I used to play on my Wii. I turned through channels before leaving it on 29. The screen remained black. I sighed and reached to press the power button, but before I could, an eerie voice comes through the speakers. You should have let me evolve. Story 3. I Won't Leave You. Tyron is a Sylveon. He is recognized for his pink fur and his ribbon-like appendages, and was sometimes even made fun of for his flamboyant and rather girly appearance. He has a very kind heart and is always willing to make friends with other Dansians of the forest, and wakes up in the morning with the hope that he would meet somebody new, and on this particular day, he will meet someone special indeed. He walks over to a small pond and starts to lap water out of it when he sees that he was not by himself. He looks up to see a nearby Eevee, who is looking down at his own reflection in the water, looking like he was on the verge of tears. Tyron felt a wave of sympathy wash over him at the sad sight, and instantaneously approaches the Eevee to console the poor child. The Eevee was noticeably thin, looking a bit like a scarecrow as if he was not used to being on his own. Indeed, he once had a home life with his once-loving trainer long ago, but as he found out firsthand, what can be given to him can be just as easily taken away. He was left on his own to rot in the woods, and none of it was even his own fault, but the Eevee slowly but surely began to at least accept his lonely disposition, being very modest in nature. The Eevee reaches out to touch his reflected image, which further ripples and distorts his image to his own liking. He cannot understand why he was kept away from having an owner, a home, a friend. Somewhere not too far away he could hear approaching footsteps, but he naturally ignored them as if he did not notice. After all, why would anyone want to see him? That was when he suddenly sees another Pokemon casted in the reflection directly behind him, with a gentle, sympathetic voice to follow. "Hello, little one. What's your name?" The Eevee turned around quickly to reply but casted his head down. Loneliness. The Sylveon gives a confused frown at the very abnormal name. Loneliness? He quickly recovers and offers another warm, fresh smile. "That's a nice name. What are you doing in a big forest like this? There are a lot of bigger, hungrier Pokemon around here who would get you in a heartbeat." He looks over the Eevee's fur closely, seeing the tear-stained pelt around his eyes and the matted, unkempt fur everywhere else. "Oh, you poor thing. Where are your parents?" he asked sweetly, but behind his grin he was secretly dreading the answer. "Well," the Eevee who introduced himself as Loneliness began, "if they would like to dine on my worthless flesh, they most certainly can." He lets out a miserable sigh. "I've been on my own for the past few years, neglected by my own trainer, just to be thrown away like a broken toy." Warm tears started to fall from the Eevee's cheeks. Tyron was in utter shock at the strong words, his mouth opening agape with his own tears now forming around his eyes. He reached out to the Eevee with a ribbon tendril rubbing his back. "Oh my Arceus! Child, how could you think of yourself like that? Everyone is special and has their own place in this world. No one is more useless than the other." The evolution lies down on his stomach to get to eye level with the smaller Pokemon, with tears still in his eyes, but with an honest, small smile returning to his cheeks. "You are special, Loneliness. No one else can tell you differently." The Eevee's tears finally made their way to the ground, which stains the grass in a dark red color. As it turns out, the poor creature was cursed but tries to deny it. He looks at the other Pokemon and shakes his head. "But I don't have a place. I serve no purpose. It is a sin for me to be alive. I am special for all the wrong reasons." At this point, Tyron couldn't take it anymore and takes the pitiable creature into a hug, who returns the embrace weeping. Tyron was ignoring the stained grass and whimpering openly into his words. Please don't say that, Lonely. You are not a sin. You are a beautiful creature that deserves as much love as everyone else. I won't let you think you are hated by everyone else. I don't hate you." He looks into the child's eyes. "That counts, right?" Tyron closes his eyes again and puts his forehead onto Lonely's and whispers, "Please accept my words." The Eevee continued to cry for a full minute, no more, no less. He tries to control the flood of different emotions flowing through him. Sorrow, relief, and most of all dreaded fear, but has difficulty controlling himself. The kind words of the other male made him feel like he actually matters in his pitiable existence for once in his life. Like he was not some sort of plague that he was inclined to believe. He opens his eyes slowly and nuzzles this generous creature, the first and only friend he's had in years. The Sylveon is more than excited to see that he has gotten to the thin boy and smiles widely and happily nuzzles him back. "Loneliness, stay with me, please. Stay with me and I will love you as much as I can. I will make sure you will never feel sad again," he said, looking down to the little one under him. Loneliness looks up at him. Stay? He couldn't finish his sentence, not knowing how. Love him? Never be sad again? The words seemed to be foreign to him now, not believing them to be true. He looks at the older male to see if he would turn out to be pulling his leg, but his expression, his tone of voice were genuine. He stares at the creature in silence before his eyes light up and kisses his newfound friend's nose. Tyron is overcome with joy at the Eevee's small kiss and starts to lick the little Eevee's face repeatedly. Loneliness closes his eyes and smiles for the first time in years as his face is licked, and is that a purr he is letting out? "Thank you, Lonely. Thank you for accepting me. I know you won't regret it." He pulls him into another embrace, rubbing his starved belly with his ribbons. After what seems like hours of this hug, he let him go and looked at the Eevee with compassionate eyes. Otherwise, the Eevee would be more than happy to hug him for the rest of eternity. The Sylveon asked the miner if he would love to play hide and seek together, but the Eevee declined the offer. Now would not be the time for that certain game, he thought. Instead, they decided on the game of tag, and they both enjoyed themselves, laughing and giggling throughout the whole game before taking an afternoon nap, with the Eevee cuddling up to his friend and hoping never to be separated. They both woke up in the early evening, stretching a little for their tired bones. It was a warm, brandy night. The Sylveon looks over to his little prince and asks how he was doing, who immediately responds with an enthusiastic, "Terrific." Tyron looks over to the pond. "I'm going to catch us some dinner. Be right back," and kissed his friend's forehead motherly before walking over to the body of water. The Eevee moves to where he can see his friend in plain sight, having a mild case of separation anxiety. Tyrant concentrates on the fish in the pond, noticing a few. He was about to pounce when suddenly they swim away frightfully. He looks in the water, curious at what scared them, but the next thing he saw almost made his heart stop. There was a figure beneath the ripples of the water. Its skin was a pure, ghastly white color. It was white across all of its body except for its hands and eyes, red. It was humanoid in appearance, having a feminine face except that its mouth was locked into a broken, yawn-like broken jaw. Upon noticing Tyrant, the figure slowly turns to him, hissing hostilely, and reaches a cold red arm to him. The Sylveon yelps and jumps back, with the Eevee now running in his direction. He approaches his friend, his voice shaky from fright. Are you okay? And was interrupted by a sudden forthcoming of rain. A storm gradually grows. Loneliness' curse starts to come back. Having a friend who cared so deeply made him almost forget about it entirely. His left eye starts to bleed, resembling red tears. Tyrant starts breathing hard, looking around. What's going on? What's happening? He looks down at the boy. Oh my Arceus, your eye! He quickly takes a nearby leaf and starts trying to wipe away the blood and looking around fearfully. The Eevee didn't seem to notice that his eye was bleeding whatsoever, and his right eye slowly starts to dilate and throb violently as if it was about to pop out from pressure. The rain continues to fall. They're coming. The older Pokemon notices Lonely's face, becoming scared. For the little one, he bends down to his level. Lonely, please look at me, Lonely. Are you okay? And he looks at the horrifying changes happening. Who is coming? Loneliness looks up at him and shakes his head at the question. No, he is not okay. He is in unbearable pain. He starts to shake and closes his eyes to try to ease the pain a bit. His left eye even stops bleeding as he does. Tyrant looks a bit reassured at that until the Eevee opens his eyes. Tyrant's jaw fell to the floor and his heart sank. The small Eevee's right eye was gone. All that was there was a mere empty socket, but Loneliness did not appear to notice this change yet. His voice sounded desperate and pain, begging his petrified friend. They want to take you away from me. Please, don't leave, he pleads. Tyrant gasps at the sight of the missing eye, but it does not push him away. He has come to know this Eevee too well to abandon him now. He looks around, seeing nothing getting any better, so he picks up the boy with his ribbons and looks him in the singular eye. I will never leave you, Lonely, never. With that, he puts the boy on his back and bolts into the woodland. If we can get to the Nameless Forest area, the others can help us, but I need to know what is happening, Lonely. Please concentrate. The Eevee is shaking uncontrollably, just now taking in the fact that he has lost vision in one of his eyes. He puts a paw to his right eye and tries to feel for it, only finding a hollow hole where it once was. His lone eye starts to shed tears from his loss of vision and from fear for Tyrant's well-being just as much as his own. He closes his eye and tries to explain. It all started when my trainers Raticate died. That's when they came. They came to my owner. They blamed me for its death. They tricked him into leaving me, and so he did. My trainer left me. He called me a curse. They possessed anyone who came in contact with me. Everybody. They are mere shadows of their former selves. But I'm not a curse. He is broken by sobbing, no longer even believing it himself. I am not a curse. Tyrant turns to look at the poor creature on his back, his eyes away from the path ahead of him. No, you're not. I'm getting you away from whatever the hell is doing this. I will not let them hurt you anymore. He turns back around to watch where he is going, but was too late and ran headfirst into a tree. He falls to the ground unconscious. When his mind came to, he found the Eevee was shaking him, yelling at him to try to wake him up. Tyrant, we need to leave. Wake up, please. His fur was now a chaotic mess, more frayed than it was before, and had many scratches and other abrasions across his thin build. At this point, he is in agonizing pain. Tyrant lifts his head up, swearing not convincingly to his friend that he is fine, and rises to his feet. He shakes his head to try to clear away his drowsiness with some success, and takes a glimpse at the Eevee, horrified. Lonely, he groans with tears in his eyes, before cursing the empty, apathetic sky above him for the suffering it has brought upon the poor child. Damn you, you fucking bastards. Ugh. He puts the boy onto his back once more, but runs at a slow pace due to his drowsiness and a throbbing pain in his head. Meanwhile, a cut opens on the Eevee's head to partially reveal his gray matter. He holds back a scream and weeps into his friend's back in unbearable pain. Tyron finds it hard to concentrate on his destination as he started to hear obscure words in his head about his friend. Monster. Killer. He tries to clear his mind on these thoughts but found it to be of no use. He looks down at his paws and gasps as he found they have become red. He was turning into one of those things that he had found at the pond earlier that day. He lets out a silent scream. Hate. Hate the monstrosity. He falls to the ground with the Eevee in front of him. Abandon him. Make him suffer, his mind screamed at him. No! The Sylveon suddenly yells out, looking at the young Pokemon. The Eevee now has his friend's attention, having a look of surprise as he finds his friend in such a state. He opens his mouth to say something or to perhaps scream. He wasn't entirely sure which, but clammed it promptly shut, probably the more wise decision for both of their sakes. He sobs, pulling on one of the ribbons, trying to make his friend move forward before it would be too late. You're becoming one of them. You need to listen to me. We need to go to the graveyard. Tyron starts to get up weakly. Where is it? He asks monotonously, concentrating every bit of willpower he has left into listening to and adoring the Eevee, but finds it is becoming harder to do so with each passing second. Loneliness looks at him woefully. He was receiving his own messages and now realized what must be done. He isn't happy about it. It's in Pallet Town. We need to go to Pallet Town. The evolution nods solemnly, his color further draining, and he starts to argue internally with the voice inside of his head. Leave him. No, I love him. Why? He is a walking corpse and a murderer. He deserves no love. Everyone deserves love. His mind was starting to rip itself apart in his internal struggle, causing him pain, but he wasn't willing to give up. Lead. Hurry. Tears running down his face freely, and the Eevee started to walk to their destination, looking back and making sure his close friend was following behind him, the rain falling harder and harder with every step towards the town. The Eevee says two cryptic words, although he wasn't the one saying them. Laid to rest. Guillotine. Tyron looks at the boy with hazy eyes, confused as to what he meant. What do you mean, Gio? Leave him! No! He abruptly shouts, staggering behind him, but he keeps up with the Eevee. Not that it was hard to, since the Eevee was limping. His bright blue eyes stop producing tears as they now dawn a crimson shade of red. They were no longer filled with passion or affection, only apathy and malice. They finally reached the town, which saddens them even more. It was too dark for any living creature to be up this late at night. Loneliness remembers that it was here he was discovered by his first trainer given to him by a professor. He was the one chosen, he remembers, after his cousin picked out a Pikachu as a starter. His memories fade as Tyron asks him a question. Lonely, what do I do? Guillotine? What do you mean? Loneliness does not respond to his question at first, only looking at his friend with his lasting left eye in utter silence. Tears were falling at a heavy rate, gazing at his loyal friend for a while before pointing at a grave in front of them. It seemed to be new, as if it was just constructed on the spot. Engraved in stone was the Eevee's own name, the missing E and all. He was mute for a few seconds before he spoke out in a hushed sob. They want me. Tyron was staring at the gravestone solemnly in disbelief. Did you die? He managed to ask before his voice became a dark, dead tone. It wasn't his. If you did, you deserved it. He quickly looked down at the boy. No, I didn't mean that. Love. It looked to cause him physical pain as he said this. You. What do I do? Please hurry. He fell to a squat and looked around to see if there was any way out of this. If there was any chance that both of them could just walk away together freely. If all this was somehow fake. But he knew that there was only one way out, and that way was for the Eevee to simply tread forward. The Eevee stares at its grave in fear of what lies beyond that simple message etched in stone. He didn't seem to catch the entirety of Tyron's comment, or perhaps ignored the hateful words that came out of his mouth when he knew it wasn't his, but he turns to his friend and embraces him in one last tight hug. You were the best friend I've ever had. He turns, hiding tears he shed and walks to his tomb. Each step seeming to numb his pain as he walks closer to fulfill his destiny, his ultimatum. The tomb opens up to reveal an abysmal void. Whether it was heaven, hell, or somewhere entirely different, neither of them knew, nor did they question it. They know that no matter where it leads, it was somewhere beyond this life and that this is their farewell. Loneliness stands in front of the gaping opening and closes his eye. It was in turn followed by the sound of ripping flesh. A large slit opens across his neck. He makes a small groaning noise as his head slowly falls off clean from his shoulders and tumbles into the box, with the rest of his body soon to follow. "No!" Tyrant howls as if voicing his anguish would somehow prevent the macabre ritual to continue. The void closes as if it never existed, leaving the grave behind. On the monument it now reads Loneliness. His name has been completed with him now inside it. Put the E where it belongs. Tyron runs towards the grave and soaks it with tears. He notices that he was now entirely normal, as if nothing out of the ordinary had ever happened, but at the expense of someone else's life. Looking around, he saw no change in the physical world, but one less Eevee on Earth. Loneliness, please come back. I want you. No, I need you with me. You were so innocent, so youthful. It's not fair. He looked up at the sky with hatred. It's not fair, you sick bastards! This time the sky did respond back. Somewhere a mad snicker could be heard, a deep baritone laughter without any humor. He fell to the ground and cried for a good hour, muttering words of love and his own misery throughout. His tears soaked the lid. The cover, he thought. The Sylveon slowly opens the cap, hoping that some way, somehow, the Eevee was merely waiting inside for him to do so. He looks down the earthen grave. Inside lies the body of an Eevee peacefully, lifeless. It was seamlessly intact. The Eevee looked like he did before the mutilation process began. He stared down at the figure. Loneliness? But heard no response. The Eevee, the closest friend he ever had, was dead. All he could do was wish that in a world beyond this stone lid that he was no longer alone. He lies down next to the cadaver and hugged it for the last time. The limp body still had some warmth to it. You were the greatest Pokemon I ever knew, Lonely. It was my pleasure to know you while you lived. He cautiously sets the Eevee back down and closes the cover once more with tears rolling down his cheeks. He plucks a red rose from a nearby bush and sets it on the stone. He recalls what the Eevee told him when they were on their fateful journey. For the record, you were always right. You weren't a curse. The Sylveon agrees with his now deceased friend, giving the cemetery one last glance before walking away. You were a blessing.